So this episode of New Mexico Desert Classics is dedicated to one of my favorite one of my favorite parts of a new project, and that is sorting through the parts that come with it. So I've already taken the liberty of going through everything, just tons of boxes came with Lobo. The whole back side of the bus was full of bins and parts and whatnot. So I've sorted them into three distinct types. One, project specific stuff that is just specifically purchased for this project. Two, random stuff that just came in the box, but VW related stuff for the most part. And then what I like to refer to as tools and cools. So we're going to get started here in a little bit. It's already all sorted out. As you can see, the garage is a pile of parts right now. But one of the reasons that we like to do this, I just dig the history and the story of the car, right? So you can kind of find that as you go through the receipts. So Lobo had a huge bag of receipts, and it started out great. You can kind of tell how a project was going for somebody, especially when you're taking over a project from somebody else. Lobo had this big bag of receipts, and I tore it open, and it's like, oh, cool, this is from a parts shop, and it's got these lists of all these parts that are bought. And then there were some from Lowe's and from O'Reilly, and there's nothing wrong with O'Reilly or Lowe's or Sonic for that matter. There were multiple Sonic receipts in there as well. But when you're looking at Lowe's home improvement receipts in your project, and it's for stuff that actually was for your project, you start to get a sense of what was going through the previous owner's mind. But in going through the receipts, you get to see what might have already been installed on the vehicle that you don't have. Like there were a ton of brake parts and an oil cooler, which I have subsequently checked out on the bus, and it looks like it wasn't installed right. So we'll be ripping that out and trying again. But it gives you an idea of how much love the project had, as well as the investment and some things that you might look for to be new on the project. So we'll get started here in a little bit, but the first part that I wanted to start with is actually this random bucket of parts. So this is just random hardware. A lot of it looks very Volkswagen-y, some of it doesn't. This was actually in the bus. It was all in Lobo. Some of it, there's a lug bolt. Looks just like junk, right? That is, it looks like junk until it's exactly what you're looking for. So not too long ago, I have 2 ammo cans full of random Volkswagen parts that I picked up years ago with some project that I bought. And not too long ago, my dad and I were working on my mom's Bug, and we couldn't get it to, something wasn't right. So I popped the valve cover, and sure enough, one of the head nuts, not only, I wanted to check that they were torqued right, not only were they not torqued right, one of them was actually missing. So, when you've got a complete engine that's in a car and it's been running and driving, and you realize that you're missing a nut that goes on a head stud that's supposed to be torqued to a specific torque in a specific order, and it's just not there. Trying to find one is the last thing you want to worry about. So luckily we popped open an ammo can, dumped it out on the garage floor, found 5 of them, put one on, torqued it, went through the torques how we were supposed to, and then took that pile of bolts and put it right back in that ammo can, because at some point we're going to need it. So luckily Lobo came along with a big plastic bin of its own. So without any further ado, we'll get going. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, I like to sort into three categories: project specific, non-project specific, and tools and cools. So for this segment, we're going to look at the non-project specific stuff. So, as you're looking at a 1969 Volkswagen bus and the bin of parts that came with it, you look at these old fuel pumps, and my instant thought was, they were taken off for some reason. But you know what? If you have not tried to acquire these are both Brazilian, right? This one's a Brosol, and this one is not this one. is an AR actually. So as you, and the weight difference in these is astonishing. But if you haven't tried to find a good quality fuel pump recently, you really should give that a shot, and I'm happy for you because it's not a fun process. So while this one is a very lightweight Brosol, this feels like original quality, right? So you order the right diaphragm set for this and it'll be good as new. Do I need it on this bus? Not as far as I know, but we set them aside anyway. Another cool part that was in here was a Ziploc bag that has all the little pieces, parts, and a top end and to a 34 PICT3, appears to be a Solex, as well as a pre-diked off idle cutout solenoid and a float, which I've actually already tested this. It's one of the things that you want to make sure that you do as you're going through parts is don't save junk. I threw away three bags of junk in the initial sorting. This float floats. Its job is to float, as its name would connotate. So if it doesn't float, test it out. Make sure it floats before you put it in your parts bin. But the cool part about this, to me, you've got the top. It appears to be in good condition. Looks like somebody's probably tanked it in the past. But these little pieces and parts that are in this Ziploc bag, it's the correct, ouch. It's the correct screws to hold the top on, as well as some jets and springs. It's got the innards to the choke in there. So these are just in a nice Ziploc bag, little quart bag for keeping them all separated. Moving on to the coil. So it's obviously a Bosch blue coil. Says right on it Bosch, and it's blue. Looks to be probably late 80s, early 90s vintage to me. Do I know it works? I do not. Have not tested that out, but we'll get to that. Just about every project you ever pick up is going to have a cap and a rotor in it. Most of them have been used because when people took off the old cap and rotor, they would just set them aside and save them just in case they were stuck on the side of the road. Something that people don't think of today. So this one, however, it's very obvious that neither the rotor nor the cap have ever been on a vehicle, so that's nice. It is the proper cap and rotor for this 1600 dual port, so we'll set those aside and have those in our spares. So that is kind of engine specific, but I didn't really need it right now because the engine appears to have a brand new coil on it. Moving on to this Autometer oil temperature gauge. So this is brand new in the box. When I saw the receipt the other night, it was $86. Do I intend to use it on this vehicle? I do not. The idea of trying to wire it up is just more than, I'd rather focus my time on getting the tins right and getting the engine cooling properly. But who knows, we might need it for another project. It only takes up that much space. I am going to leave it in the box because it's got all the, you can hear all the extra parts for the installation shaking around in the box in the bottom. All right, so the dreaded plastic fuel filter. I'm not going to tell you where to put this. I'm not going to tell you not to use a plastic one. What I am going to tell you is your fuel needs to be filtered. So take your time, do it right. I like to keep these on hand because when they are plugged up, that is the easiest thing to swap out and just get yourself going. So again, that'll go in one of the roadside kits. I'd like to give a little shout out to Gary from VW Life. I like to watch a lot of their YouTube videos, and Gary does he's done a great series on what to have on the side of the road for when you're stuck. And actually, believe it or not, this bus came with a ton of it. Came with fan belt, accelerated cable, all of those things. This is another one, right? You wouldn't want to run a plastic one for a long time unless it's in the right spot. But if you need it, you're not going to care if it's cheap plastic when you're stuck on the side of the road. All right, some more random stuff that was in there. So 4 chrome wheel lug nuts. This is not what goes on the bus, but it's just hard for me to take something that was purchased for a reason and not at least save it for a project in the future. Same with this red battery cable for the positive side and the leaded lug to go on it. Those, I just put new ones on the bus. If I'd have been smart when I was first trying to get it started, I'd have checked to see what was in the parts bins, but I wasn't. These are invaluable. They are exhaust clamps, the two-piece clamps with the little O-ring that goes on it. So those will go on some pea shooters at some point, probably not on this bus because it's already set up. A nice length of good quality fuel line. It's not the braided German stuff, but you can tell it is braided underneath the rubber. So while I normally am not a big fan of reusing old rubber, especially for fuel line, this was in good shape, so we kept it. And then you're just gonna have some random stuff. I happen to know what these are. They're quick mount nylon mounting rods according to the packaging, but what they really are is what was used they're essentially vehicle automotive grade zip ties that were used to connect the oil cooler to the mounting that was done on it. So these are all the things that I decided to preserve. A set of bearings, 113, 105, 707. So those actually seem like they're probably right for the engine, but who knows whether or not they are, yeah, who knows? We'll have to mic them out and see whether or not they're usable and whether or not we need them. So a couple of the other things that I saved. You can never have enough of the generator stand baffles and a intake preheat tube gasket. You know, I don't know why. Somebody the other day was looking for one and I didn't have one, so I saved it. And then you can never have enough of the oil change, a little cardboard. You can make them out of cereal boxes, right? But being a frugal family, we don't buy cereal in boxes very often anymore. It usually comes in a bag and goes in a bin. So I saved those. All right, so this is everything that isn't specific to this bus, but we kept it anyway. All right, so this is not an ad for Tidy Cat. In fact, I don't own a cat. Not that you can ever own a cat, they own you. But this is actually just a bucket that happened to be in the bus, had parts in it, and I held on to it because A, it's watertight, it's gonna keep the parts out of the way, and B, these are parts that I don't know when they're gonna get used. So I don't want them just hanging around the shop. I don't want them up on shelves. So they're gonna go in this bucket, get put on a shelf at the shop, and I don't do a great job of keeping a written inventory, but I've got a pretty good mental inventory of everything that we have, and it's all in one tight little location, so we'll be able to find it. So I like to just keep some bins like this on hand to put parts in and keep them from getting strewn around the shop. So I want to take a quick minute to explain why it's important to do this as your first step. So we already went through all the stuff that wasn't related to the bus, and we've got a whole nother bin of stuff that is related to the bus. But the most important pieces that I found, I was just about to place an order the other day for window seals. All the way around, the window seals are original, I assume. They are chunked, they are junk, windows rattling around. I'm afraid to close the back hatch because the glass is going to come out. The chrome strips, the stainless, has all been beaten with hail. So I'm probably not going to be able to save it. So for now, since I'm not able to afford to paint the bus right now, but I need to do the windows, I was going to order about $300 worth of window rubber to just get the windows in, get them secured, and make the bus drivable. Well, lo and behold, as I'm going through the parts, rear window seal, windshield seal. Folks, that's about $150 worth of seals that were in the bus. They were there. I didn't need to buy them. If I had bought them, what do you think the chances are that I actually would have returned the ones I ordered? I don't know if you're better at it than I am, but I don't send stuff back. So These probably would have sat and been spares. They are good quality seals. So I'm going to set them aside and order the remainder for the sides. And that way we'll shoot a future video on installing them. But I was so stoked to find these. Saved me about 150 bucks. And in my world, that's a lot of money to be putting into a project. All right, so don't worry, we're not going to go through the whole bin part by part. But a couple things I wanted to do is show you how I like to go, what I preserve and what I don't. So obviously there's things that are clearly useful. So Hippie condenser, you can say Hippie's junk, I don't care. It's when you need a condenser, even if this is a 50-50 shot. I would much rather have the 50-50 shot than nothing. So kept that. I mentioned Gary from VW Life earlier. You know, he's always says to keep the accelerator cable along with you on trips. So I already looked up this part number. It is correct for the bus, so we'll be keeping that with us. A generator alternator belt. This is a V-belt. Honestly, I can't remember if it's got an alternator or a generator on it at the moment. But so I'll have to check this out and make sure it's the right length. But you don't want to be stuck on the side of the road in an air-cooled VW without one. So that was nice to have. Obviously, we've got, you know, tons of little interior pieces, a hubcap for the stock wheels that isn't even on it anymore. But these are the types of things like this. This is the where the rear seat lays back against the flat part above the engine and that front firewall there in front of the engine. Those are the little tabs that stick out, I'm pretty sure, that keep the rear seat just a hair off of that. And obviously, these are the interior door handle, so that it can be nice and pretty and shiny. Little radio cable. Don't know if that'll fit the antenna or not. I actually figured out today that so these visors, the driver's one is in good condition. It's interesting. You'll find that as much as the drivers, you would expect the visors to be rougher on a driver's side than on the passenger side. What I've actually found with Volkswagens over the years is that passengers were far rougher and tended to leave them down. When you're driving, a visor tends to be it can be in your way a bit. But when you're a passenger, you leave it down. So this is another perfect example. Passengers one is absolutely roached. Drivers one isn't. But I saw today when I was looking at my 75 bus shell that sits next to Lobo out at the shop that the passengers one is in pretty good shape. So we'll be snagging that. We were also discussing today while we were out taking a look at them with David Brown and High Coke and Nate Totten out at the shop today. These are the little pieces. You'd be amazed what it costs to try to replace some of these things. These go right inside under the dash on the doors. These go right behind the doors as it goes back into the main part of the cabin of the bus. And they bolt onto the bulkhead and they catch that airflow. I don't want to be the guy who's trying to source these, so I'm extremely glad that these are just the project that Lobo came with them. The jack, obviously got to keep that. I've been on the side of the road one too many times. Although quite honestly, am I likely to use this on the side of the road? Probably not. I don't take my air-cooled cars. I like to drive them. I like to daily drive them, but I don't like to take them on trips. So the likelihood that I wouldn't be able to pick up the phone, call my wife and say, I broke down, come and get me, and Cheyenne would come running. But it's cool to be able to have it in the bus, have the original jack. So again, interior pieces. It's so funny when you're going through a vehicle looking to see what stuff is and what you have. I looked at this, I had no idea what it was. It's like, yeah, it's about the size of a beer can. No idea. And then up came this one. It's a dash vent, right? And it's got the baffle in it which this one doesn't, but I have the other part to this in here. I just didn't know that they went together. I'm sure I would have figured it out eventually, but not being a bus guy, it really helped to find one intact to know what else I had. All right, so when we were talking about Lobo the other day, in the first video, I mentioned that I bought a seat. So the seller had forgotten with the middle seat, had forgotten that I had also paid for the little mounting clamps for 6 of them to be able to install the seat. So he mailed them to me. That is one thing you can always count on the Volkswagen community to do is take care of you. I've been hosed a couple times, but I like to think positive about people. And so I trusted him to send them, and sure enough, they showed up in the mail as soon as he could get them to me. All right. There's one of those priceless moments when the thing that you just talked about not wanting to source falls on the floor. Luckily, it didn't break. Bulbs. Another Garyism from VW Life. You cannot go anywhere without some 1157s because those are going to get you through single filament to be exactly on the side of the road. I don't care what it is. That's going to be good enough. Again, I'm not going to dig through all this, but I just want to show a couple pieces. Because when I was talking earlier about receipts, right? It's cool to be going through the receipts and another canister. You see what they spent money on, and there were lots of brake parts on the receipts. I thought, oh, that's awesome. That means the previous owner went through and did the brakes. Problem. When I started going through all the parts, all the brake parts that the previous owner bought appear to still be new in the packaging. So it's good that I have them, but I was really hoping that I wasn't going to have to do any brake work on this bus. Although, you know, it looks like they probably did some, so it's possible that these flex hoses were the wrong ones, although the numbers were right, or maybe they ordered some extras. You can tell that they already had done, so there's front and rear bus wheel cylinders in here. So I kept these shells because these are difficult to come by these days. But so it was a little disheartening to find all the new brake parts in there. But who knows? We'll check it out when we get the bus home and start working on it. Awesome things to find are like interior door pulls, because there's no door handles on it right now. The OS handle from above the glove box, 3 armrests. I love original stuff, right? I mean, could you order this from Wolfsburg West or somebody? Yeah, probably. But you know what? I don't want to because they're expensive. So I love the fact that these are here. Hopefully the mounting screws were put back in the holes when they removed them. At this point, knowing this bus, I'm not hopeful, but we'll see. All right, getting to the bottom of the bin here. So again, a couple more armrests. Get those out of the way. Side markers. These side markers, even though, so I've got 2 of the amber markers, 1 red marker, and a base to a red marker. So I almost threw this away, and then I thought, you know what? If I were to order a new one, it's going to come with a bright black. There's a great term for you. It's going to come with a new shiny, flashy base, and so I'm going to end up replacing. Cars only original once, and especially on a '69 bus. So I saved this. I'll buy a new reflector to go on here, but it'll have that correct patina, and I mean real patina, not fake patina. It'll have that correct look to match the other one. All right, so I make no bones about the fact that I'm a dork. I like odd things. So one of the things I like to go through, in fact, let's see if I have it in my pocket from earlier. I do not. I like to find old coins. Nothing lights me up better than lifting up on a 75 bus today. I lifted up the rubber mat in the middle section there, and there's a penny. Well, it was a coin of some sort. It was a penny. It ended up being. In my brain, I'm thinking, oh, it's a 1943 steel penny. Yeah, no, it was a 74. It's nothing special. It's a cool year. My brother was born that year. But I like, as much as I like going through the parts and all the finding that story, you can never tell what you're gonna find in a bus when it comes to tools and cools. So this, or in any car for that matter. So wire brush, we'll be using that. Little adapter for a drill for a nut driver, we'll be using that. Itty bitty Allen wrench about the size for a set screw on something. I dig old pencils. I dig old stuff. And then this is a cool one too. So this is powdered graphite lubricant. That goes in the box. I have tons of crescent wrenches. I know you're not supposed to use them on anything, right? But that one's going in the toolbox actually, because I don't have one that small. And there's times that, I don't want to try and determine if it's a 6mm, or 7mm, or an 8mm. I just want it off. So I'll be using that. Tire pressure gauge. Not sure if I trust this one. We'll give it a couple shots, but it's got a good heavy weight to it. This is not plastic, since who knows how long it's been in the bus. So that's cool. So it's not a 10mm, I can tell you that, but this is a Craftsman 13mm socket. Hey, previous owner, I found your 13mm. These, I might end up launching these because I have a bunch of the pieces and parts to this is a brake bleeder vacuum pump. The thing that I do like about this one is it has the end that they don't put on them anymore, or at least I haven't found them, that pops over the bleeder valve a lot better. So I might just save that hose in that end and get rid of the rest of it. But for now, we're going to put it in the bucket. It goes in the bucket. All right, so Lobo must have been a prison bus at some sort, because I've never seen anything more shiv than this. What I think it actually is an old putty knife that probably came up about this wide, and whatever it was used for is all over the handle. But man, tell me that doesn't look like a prison shiv. So I don't know, might keep it, might not. It's pretty cool. By far the coolest thing. In fact, I had to shoot this video. I had to go get it off of the wall in my garage. 1969, when Lobo was made, was a totally different time in history in our country. I don't know, this might be from the 2000s for all I know, but this is a well used bottle opener. And it appears to be some advertising for something I can't even tell anymore. It's got some writing on it that I can't distinguish. But that, to me, I mean, this thing has popped probably thousands of bottle tops. And it's from a time in our country when it was still acceptable to make promotional items that were related to popping a bottle. Now, back then, it probably was a pop bottle, right? A soda, maybe a beer. But it's got that good vintage weight to it. So it's going to go right back over on a hook in the garage. But that was cool. So not a ton of cool stuff in the bus. Maybe as I start ripping some more stuff out, I'll find some stuff. But I think in reality, I think what has actually happened is this has been a project for so many people for so long that it's already been culled of all the cool stuff. So it's just pretty neat to find this in there. So that is the tools and cools section. All right, so that about does it. I'm going to wrap it up. That's the easy part, right? That's the part that it's like that cool investigative process of figuring out what all you have. Now's the hard part. Now I have to find out what I don't have, and this is where my organization skills don't come in real well. So again, reaching back to Gary and the guys from VW Life. I can't credit them enough with how they've helped me to organize projects mentally. So they have the big thing on the wall that's their list and they check off. So what I'm actually going to start doing is just an Excel file on the computer that has all the stuff I think I need. I can remember doing this on my first project back in 1994. Had to have been 93 actually. In Del City, Oklahoma. I lived in Altus, Oklahoma as an Air Force brat. And my mom and dad drove me up to Oklahoma City, to Del City, a little suburb, and picked up a 1962 Volkswagen Bug, drug it home all the way back down, about 2.5, 3 hours down to Altus, and started tearing it apart. And I can remember making that list in a spiral notebook. $7,000 in receipts later. It was a beautiful car when I was done. It kept me out of a lot of trouble in high school. But that list, that's where it always was okay, what am I saving for next? Life hasn't changed much. I'm still saving for stuff. So I'm going to start a list of the stuff that I know I need. I know I need door panels. Like I said, I need to order a little bit less window rubber than I needed to before. I need seat upholstery. Obviously I have tons of engine parts in the mechanical, so that shouldn't be as big of a deal. But so I'm going to start making that list, and then I'm going to make a list like the guys on VW Life do. I'm going to make a list of not just the parts I need to order. That'll be the first set of lists, but then the list of things that I need to do and phase it out. Because I intend to get this bus on the road as quickly as possible and start driving it, because that's really what they're there for. So again, thanks for hanging out with us. I know this one doesn't have anything pretty. It's just got me and a bunch of junky old parts that I promised my hands were clean before I started, and they aren't now. They smell like an old Volkswagen, which is awesome. So we're going to wrap it up. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, follow us on Facebook, New Mexico Desert Classics, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thanks again.